Hello everybody and welcome to another video. And because you guys said you wanted reviews, here's our first one, and it's going to be Gotham Knights. Just so you know, this is a non-spoiler review, and I also played this on the PS5. So if you are going to play it on Xbox or PC, it may be a good amount better or worse, especially with the performance side of things. Also, really quickly, I want to thank you for the support, and thank you for helping me reach 750 subscribers. If you do enjoy the video, please do leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what you want to see next. Without further ado, let's get started with graphics and performance. So first off, I want to do the performance stuff and get it out of the way. I played a majority of the game with only the day 1 patch, and during that time there was a lot of frame drops on both the bat cycle and when using Nightwing's traversal abilities, as well as just the occasional drop when doing basically nothing. Now, after a few updates since launch, I think there's been 3 or 4. Since the new updates, you'll see some pop in, as seen in this video here. If you look at the building, it just popped in like that. Now obviously the frame drops are worse than the pop in, but hopefully I do think the pop in should be fixed in the future. I don't know if it will, but I really hope it does, because it is a little distracting when playing the game. Next, I want to talk about Gotham itself. Gotham is the biggest it's been in any game yet. Basically every Gotham landmark you can think of is here, including Arkham Asylum, Blackgate, and Wayne Tower. Anything you can think of, basically, if you're a fan of the Batman mythos, is here. Gotham in this game is broken up into 5 distinct districts. There's North Gotham, New Gotham, Downtown Gotham, Historic Gotham, and Lower Gotham. Each part of Gotham has a different style, with some parts being more gothic in nature, while others have a more normal city feel to it. Gotham itself is the most vibrant and unique it's been in any game yet. And it's actually full of life, too. Everywhere you go, you're gonna see NPCs walking around, you're gonna see cars, you're gonna hear people talking about both your character and also just talking about their everyday lives. On top of that, also, I'd like to mention that the city just looks good in this game. Like, there's puddles everywhere that really help show the ray tracing off, because all of the light from all of these buildings reflects through it. And I honestly do think that the graphics in this game are one of the highlights. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the music, and to be honest, I can't really tell you if it's good or not, because during my playthrough, it was off the whole time. Because sadly, this game does not have a streamer mode, meaning you can have copyright problems leaving it on. Now, this is something that I do think should be in all modern games, as a lot of people do decide if they want games based off of things like YouTube and Twitch, because they want to see how people enjoy the game and see what it's like. So basically not being able to play with music if you want to do videos on it is kind of disappointing. So yeah. Now, every character in this game shares 2 things: a grapple gun, and, as well, bat cycle. On top of this, each character also has their own unique traversal skill. Now, for example, Nightwing uses a glider in this game, which is pretty fun to use. It is one of the best, if not the best, ways to get around in the game, as you can basically go anywhere you want. Batgirl's traversal ability is very similar to Batman's in the Arkham games, as it is her gliding with a cape. Now, it isn't quite as good as the Arkham Knight gliding is, but it's still fun to use. Jason unlocks the ability to leap through the air using magic from the Lazarus Pit. Now, this is a little odd, but it'll make sense through the story of the game. Now, last and certainly least is Robin's traversal ability, where he hacks into the Justice League Watchtower and can teleport. Now, while it makes sense lore-wise and such, it honestly is just very slow and kind of boring. And honestly, whenever I play as Robin, I just opt to use his grapple and the bat cycle because it's just more fun. Now, the first of these three I think are great, Nightwing being the easiest and the most useful, and Robin's being the worst. Now, the traversal that I mentioned earlier, the bat cycle, is really, really fun to use in this game. You can do a lot of stuff that you'd want to be able to do, including do a wheelie, and the fun part about doing the wheelies is you can actually go over civilian cars, which is nice. Now, I will say that at sometimes I do wish that the bike was faster, or that there was like a boost button, but overall I think the bike is really well done, and the drifting is pretty easy to do. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the grapple. And a big thing people have complained about is the fact that you can grapple to things that are below you. And while it does look a little weird, I do think overall it does improve the traversal, especially when you're playing as like Robin, if you're not really wanting to use the teleport, because you can just jump around with your grapple. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the combat and the variety of combat, because each character in this game feels very different from each other. Robin focuses mainly on stealth, and a lot of his abilities are helpful for that. He can go invisible, his teleport is really great for that, and take the silent takedowns as well. Now, he also uses a staff, which is great for crowd control, so any enemies that you're hitting that are close together, it'll hit both of them. His ranged attack is hit a slingshot, which you may think is weird at first. I definitely thought it was weird, but it is a good way to differentiate. I can't say that word apparently. Differentiate him from Batgirl. Now, on top of this, I do think Robin is the best at stealth overall in this game, just because his abilities. And a big thing I do want to also mention is the fact that if you've played the Arkham games before, you'll know that in the Predator areas, you can scare enemies, and that's kind of a fun thing to do. Big thing in this game is that you can actually do that as well in just melee, normal combat. You can frighten an enemy and they'll just decide that they don't want to mess with this and they'll just run away. Now, Batgirl uses a tonfa as her main weapon, which if you don't know is basically a police baton, which is kind of fitting. Now, Batgirl's main gimmick essentially is that she is a hacker, so a lot of like environmental stuff you can hack into and make blow up a panel on the wall, or make a turret shoot the enemies instead. Now, her ranged weapon is batarangs, which works how you would expect. Overall, she's very much like Batman is in the Arkham games. Now, Nightwing's main focus is teamwork and acrobatics. He's the leader of the group, so he has a lot of upgrades focused on buffing his teammates. Like I said before, is very acrobatic, so a lot of his abilities are focused on jumping from enemy to enemy, and he uses his eskrima sticks to fight. He also uses his wrist darts, which are really good for dealing elemental damage to the enemy. He did feel a bit slow to me at first, and that was my main complaint with the heroes, was that Nightwing felt slow, but later you can get an upgrade making him be able to bounce from enemy to enemy, which makes him feel much faster. I don't think it actually changes the speed, I think it just makes it feel faster because you're able to do that better. Now, Red Hood overall is the most unique of the four heroes because he focuses mainly on ranged combat, as he uses guns. And even his main combos are done with his ranged attack instead of his melee attack. Now, he also, while every character can do grab attacks, Red Hood is the one that's going to be best at them, as he has a lot of upgrades focused around these grab attacks. A lot of his attacks are based off of either brute strength or his guns. Now, overall, he's definitely the most unique, just because of the ranged attacks and the grab attacks. Now, with his grab, You can even, as you can see, with your grab attack, Red Hood can even attach a bomb to an enemy and then shoot it to deal damage to surrounding enemies and that enemy. Overall, I think the characters are done really well in this game. Each of these characters feel great. The next thing I want to talk about is the progression system. Now, there are 4 ways of becoming more powerful in the game. The first is your gear and mod system. The second is leveling up. And the third is using those leveled up points that you gain to unlock different abilities. The final one is your momentum abilities. Each of these can be unlocked by performing specific tasks as you progress through the story, like defeating this many of that enemy. Gear can be obtained in 2 ways, either by completing objectives during the game, or by going to the Belfry, which is your base of operations for the game, and using the workbench, and crafting a suit, or other pieces of gear. Now, there are 3 different types of gear: suit, melee, and ranged. Each of these also modifies your appearance, with the suit one being the most obvious. You can also then go to your style menu and modify the outfit you have on further by using colorways, modifying the cowl, symbol, gloves, and boots. On top of that, you can also use the transmog system. The transmog system isn't great, because you only have 1 of 15 options for what you want to look like, and you cannot modify them like you can the normal suits. Hopefully in the future this is changed. I just suggest using the default suit that you have for your gear, and then modifying it with colorways. Mods can be equipped to each gear piece and will buff strength, elemental effect buildup, health, and more. These can be obtained via story progression or objectives. You can also level up, which buffs your stats slightly and gives you ability points to use. You can also get ability points from collecting enough collectibles as well. One important thing to note about the abilities is that you will not be able to get all of the skills in your first playthrough. To unlock the ones you've missed, you'll have to go into New Game Plus, which increases the level cap from 30 to 40. The 4th way to buff yourself and become stronger is through momentum abilities. Each of these can be unlocked through story progression and completing a specific task once you get to that. Overall, I do think that the progression is good in this game, but it definitely is a little confusing, especially with the mods and the gear. You may need to look up a guide to truly master all of these things. Next, we're going to be talking about the main story. The main story follows the Bat family investigating the death of Batman and the Court of Owls. Overall, I do think the story is just okay, to be honest. I do think I would have enjoyed it more if the story hadn't leaked before its release and I wasn't spoiled on a lot of things. The story will definitely be better if you do go into the game blind, so if you haven't already watched playthroughs, I would suggest waiting until after you play the game first. Now, they're technically called case files, and there are 4 currently in the game, with 3 of them being your side stories. But honestly, they're long enough that they could be considered their own little stories. I think they're about like 4 to 6 hours, depending on how geared up you are. It can definitely go much faster if you're really geared up. You could probably finish all of one of them in 3 hours. I know Clayface's is the shortest. I think you could probably finish that one in 2 hours if you were really fast. But these side missions are so much better than 99% of games, honestly. One thing I did mention before with the story, and it's the same thing with this, is that all of the cutscenes are going to be different based off of what character you're currently playing as. So if you go and talk to Harley Quinn, she'll talk to you as if you actually are the character and compliment Nightwing's butt and stuff like that, which is something really interesting and helps make it more entertaining. Now, overall, I think the side stories are great. Each of the side stories follows a different villain, including Harley Quinn, Clayface, and Mr. Freeze. Each of these stories are really good, and I think this would also be the perfect way to make DLC if they ever do decide to do that for this game. So, predetermined crimes are essentially your major crimes like bank robberies, kidnappings, and illegal shipments. You can find out about these crimes in advance by interrogating criminals. Now, there are 15 different crime types. At the beginning of the game, these crimes may seem repetitive, but as you progress through the game and more enemy factions are introduced, it adds a lot of variety to each night's possible crimes. Now, there are also just your normal crimes. The basic crimes like thugs running from cops who are arresting them, ATM robbers, and carjackers. These will just randomly appear and you can take them out very easily. Now, there really aren't too many bosses in this game, and while they are different enough from each other, they aren't all completely unique and can feel very short if you're too geared up or if you're using the element that that specific boss is weak against. Now, this isn't really a spoiler, but I'm going to say, for example, Mr. Freeze, if you use a weapon that's fire-based, you're going to be able to beat Mr. Freeze much faster in both of his boss fights. Now, hopefully there is DLC or a sequel that includes more and better bosses, because there really aren't too many bosses either in this game, and that's definitely one of my complaints for the game. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the races that are included in the game. Around Gotham, there are different time travels. Speaking of time travel, this is Future Iron here, and Gotham Knights is on sale right now for $42 on both the PlayStation Store and the Xbox Store for Black Friday. So if you are at all interested in this game, I would suggest getting it now. The Deluxe Edition DLC is also on sale if you do want to get that as well, although I don't know if that's worth the price of that. Anyways, continue with the video. Time trials focused on either using the Bat Cycle or each hero's unique traversal abilities. Overall, these are just alright, to be honest, but these will unlock new colorways for your Bat Cycle, which basically act the same as your Batsuit colorways. I just said Batsuit colorways, but you know what I mean. There are 4 different types of collectibles in this game, and none of them are related to the Riddler. So if you've gotten burnt out on that after playing through the Arkham series, you don't need to worry about that. Now, these range from collecting batarangs or scanning street art across Gotham. On top of these, you can also collect all of the gear styles, colorways, and transmogs, which will definitely keep you busy in the game for a long time. The photo mode in this game is honestly the best I've seen, and is honestly my favorite photo mode in any game. You can use a whole bunch of different poses, change your facial expression, there's filters, you got a whole bunch of weather options. But honestly, my favorite part is that not only is there a lighting mode, there's a whole bunch of presets as well, which makes it super easy for getting just good looking photos. I mean, it definitely helps that there's also a hard to speak English sometimes. It definitely helps that all of the like poses and such look really cool, but like just the fact that these are an option is amazing, honestly. There's one final thing I want to talk about before we get to my final verdict, and that is New Game Plus and replayability. Now, something important to note is that when you select New Game Plus in this game, you cannot return to your normal like save beforehand, which is a little disappointing. There's also not more than one save file. If you just want to restart, you can't do so without getting rid of all your progress. But one good thing is you can do New Game Plus over and over, allowing you to essentially have New Game Plus Plus or Plus Plus Plus, etc. The replayability is also pretty good here, especially because, like I mentioned earlier, all of these story missions have different dialogue depending on what character you're playing as. So they aren't different enough to where you're going to want to play all 4 different ones back to back to back, but you could play it 4 times in 1 year and not get bored of it. Overall, Gotham Knights is a good game, and the main problems people have were due to performance issues, which wasn't too bad for me, luckily. Now, I don't know if the PS5 version is better optimized or something or if I was just lucky, but especially after the updates, it was not a problem for me. The other main issue is that this game kind of just wasn't what people wanted. People love the Arkham games, rightfully so. They are amazing, but this isn't meant to be an Arkham game. Yes, there are similarities, like I have mentioned some during this video, but overall this is a new game and hopefully, in my opinion, could be a new franchise. So my rating is 8 out of 10. Now, this game is good, and I really do think it deserves DLC or a sequel, but it does have its issues keeping it from being perfect. Now, if I weren't a Batman or DC fan, I probably would have rated it 7 out of 10, but if you're a DC fan or even just a fan of superhero games, I highly suggest this game. Guess what? You made it to the end of the video. Before leaving, give it a like if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more content like this. You can also find me on Twitter and Twitch via the link in the description. Have any questions or feedback on the video? Comment them below. You still here? If you are, check out this playlist, or maybe this video. You know, whichever you prefer, or if you don't want to do that, maybe click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.